Emily Carter took a deep breath as she walked through the gates of Westbridge High School for the first time. She wore a plain blue sweater, faded jeans, and a pair of old sneakers. Her dark brown hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she carried a worn backpack that looked as though it had been used for years. Students gathered around the entrance glanced at her and immediately began whispering among themselves. Most of them came from wealthy families and arrived in expensive cars. They wore designer clothes, carried the newest phones, and spoke proudly about luxurious vacations. Emily stood out from everyone else, but she didn't seem to care. She simply smiled and walked toward her classroom. As she entered, a girl named Vanessa Hill looked her up and down with a smug expression. Vanessa was the most popular girl in school and made sure everyone knew it. Her father was a famous attorney, and her mother owned a successful fashion company. Vanessa loved being the center of attention. "You must be the new student," she said. Emily nodded politely. "Yes, I'm Emily." Vanessa laughed softly. "Well, Emily, I hope you can afford to stay here." Several students laughed while Emily quietly took her seat. Throughout the morning, students stared at her clothes and whispered behind her back. During lunch, Emily sat alone beneath a large tree near the courtyard. She had barely taken a bite of her sandwich when Vanessa and her friends walked over. "Is that your lunch?" Vanessa asked. "My dog eats better food than that." Her friends burst into laughter. Emily remained calm. "It's just a sandwich," she replied. Vanessa folded her arms. "You know, people like you don't usually fit in here." Emily simply smiled. "Maybe." As the days passed, the bullying became worse. Someone hid Emily's books. Another student spilled juice on her sweater. Mean rumors spread throughout the school. Yet Emily never complained. Unknown to everyone, Emily was the daughter of Richard Carter, one of the richest businessmen in the country. He owned hotels, technology companies, shopping centers, and private resorts around the world. His wealth was estimated to be several $billion. However, Richard had always believed that wealth should never define a person's value. He had raised Emily to understand hard work, kindness, and humility. That was why Emily dressed simply and never revealed her family's identity. She wanted people to appreciate her for who she was instead of what she possessed. One afternoon, the principal entered the classroom with an exciting announcement. "As all of you know, our annual charity gala will take place this Friday evening. Many important guests will attend, and all proceeds will support scholarships for children in need." The students immediately became excited. Vanessa proudly raised her hand. "My family will donate $50,000 this year." Everyone applauded loudly. Vanessa turned toward Emily with a smile. "What about you? Will your family donate anything?" Emily shrugged. "Perhaps." Vanessa laughed. "Maybe a few coins?" Once again, the class burst into laughter. Emily quietly returned to her work. Friday finally arrived. The school gymnasium had been transformed into a magnificent ballroom decorated with sparkling lights, beautiful flowers, elegant tables, and golden curtains. Wealthy parents arrived dressed in expensive clothing, while photographers captured every moment. Vanessa wore a dazzling silver dress and expensive jewelry. She proudly walked through the entrance beside her parents, greeting everyone she knew. As she looked around, she noticed that Emily had not arrived. "I knew she wouldn't show up," Vanessa said confidently. Suddenly, the sound of engines filled the air outside the building. One by one, several black luxury vehicles entered the parking area. Security guards stepped out and quickly surrounded the cars. Conversations stopped instantly as everyone turned toward the entrance. The door of the first vehicle slowly opened. A tall man wearing an elegant black suit stepped onto the red carpet. Gasps spread throughout the crowd. It was Richard Carter. His face regularly appeared on television, magazine covers, and business journals across the world. People admired him not only because of his success, but also because of his generosity. The principal hurried forward to greet him. Before anyone could speak, another door opened. Emily stepped out of the second car. The entire room fell silent. Vanessa's mouth dropped open in disbelief. Her mother looked equally shocked. Emily smiled politely as she walked beside her father. "Good evening," she said softly. The principal stared at her in astonishment. "Emily?" Richard placed his hand gently on his daughter's shoulder. "Yes," he said. "Emily Carter is my daughter." The room exploded with whispers. Students could hardly believe what they were hearing. Vanessa stood frozen. The girl she had mocked for weeks was one of the richest young women in the country. Richard and Emily walked onto the stage while everyone watched in complete silence. Richard adjusted the microphone and looked around the room. "My daughter chose to attend this school because she wanted to be treated like an ordinary student," he began. "She wanted people to know her character instead of her family name. Unfortunately, many people judged her because of her appearance." Several parents lowered their heads in embarrassment. Richard continued speaking. "True wealth is measured not by money but by kindness, honesty, and compassion. A person who possesses these qualities is richer than someone who owns the world." Emily smiled proudly at her father. Richard then reached into his pocket and handed a document to the principal. "My family would like to donate $10 million to establish scholarships and improve educational opportunities for future generations." For a moment, nobody moved. Then the entire room erupted into thunderous applause. The principal's eyes filled with tears. Vanessa could not believe what she was seeing. After the ceremony ended, students surrounded Emily and began asking questions. The same people who had ignored her now desperately wanted her attention. Emily answered politely but remained humble. A few moments later, Vanessa slowly approached her. "Emily," she said quietly, "I'm sorry for everything. I treated you terribly." Emily looked at her for several seconds before smiling gently. "Everyone makes mistakes," she replied. Vanessa lowered her eyes. "Why didn't you tell anyone who you really were?" Emily glanced around the room. "Because I wanted real friends, not people who cared about money." Vanessa nodded slowly as tears formed in her eyes. "I understand." As Emily prepared to leave, Richard smiled proudly at his daughter. He knew she had learned one of life's most valuable lessons. Wealth could buy luxurious homes, expensive cars, and beautiful clothing, but it could never purchase kindness, integrity, or respect. Meanwhile, everyone at Westbridge High School would remember that evening forever. They had judged a quiet girl because of her simple appearance, only to discover that she belonged to one of the wealthiest families in the world. From that day forward, Emily was no longer known as the poor girl. Instead, she became the girl who taught everyone that appearances can be deceiving and that true greatness comes from the heart.